The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into WarUp on the WPIAL, featuring your hosts, Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome in another episode of WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson as we look into the first week of section wrestling. We'll dive right into the scores. Coming up a little later in the show, we have Kevin Wildrick of Seneca Valley joining us. We'll also be doing a breakdown of the King of the Mountain tournament, the North Hills duels, as well as Beast of the East. Just a couple of things we'll be looking forward to. But we first want to just dive right into the Week 1 wrestling action and get you the scores from around the WPIAL. Let's first start in subsection 1A. Kiski area beats Gateway 84-0. Plum beats Penn Hills 27-25. In 1B, Franklin Regional beats Norwin 49-16. Hempfield beats Greensburg-Salem 37-21. And Latrobe beats Penn Trafford 48-23. You look at 1B, Jeff. Latrobe gets 5 forfeits to beat Penn Trafford. Penn Trafford could be a good team. They just don't have the numbers, I think, to be able to move on. But Hempfield was the one that really had a strong showing against Greensburg-Salem. We talked about how Greensburg-Salem did well in the previous weekend tournament action, but Hempfield only gives up 1 forfeit. They had more falls than Greensburg-Salem, 4-1, and also matches won 9-4. Greensburg-Salem actually won 4 of the first 5 matches, and then Hempfield won the rest. They gave up the 1 forfeit in between, but it was all Hempfield after that. Impressive performance for Hempfield.
Yeah, Greg, you're right. And there was quite a few matches here that could have gone either way. There was at least 4 or 5 one-point matches in here. You look at Joe Williams at 160. He got a 1-point win for Greensburg-Salem. But then Isaiah Vance from Hempfield at 285. He got a 1-point win, a 1-0 win over Trent Patrick. So this is a match that I was very looking forward to in terms of how they matched up, because both teams have some young talent, but also some returning guys such as Luke Kemmer and those names that you will recognize. So overall, impressed with the way Hempfield was able to just storm out. After Greensburg-Salem came out with several wins, they were able to come back and hold this off. So Hempfield definitely looks like a solid team in 1B.
Yeah, they really do, and it looks like it's going to be Hempfield and Franklin Regional. We talked about Franklin Regional in our opening show and how they lost a couple of big names, obviously, but they did have a couple of freshmen coming in, so Franklin Regional may not be a top 4 team, but they're going to definitely contend, especially in the top 8, I would say. I think Hempfield's in that mix, though, and the one thing I take away, too, is Latrobe beating Penn Trafford, but you get 5 forfeits. It's hard to take away what you can see out of Latrobe from the opening weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And unfortunately for them, they did give up that many forfeits. And as you said, Franklin Regional, it's interesting this year because 1B, I mean, it's such a tough section, always a tough section, but we're seeing all these forfeits in some of these teams that are historically doing well there. So, how are they going to adjust their lineups to make it where they can actually compete with these bigger schools like Kiski?
The match on this week is coming Wednesday. It's going to be a big one, Franklin Regional and Hempfield. So we should see right there, potentially, that could be the match to win 1B, and it's coming up this week in December.
It's early on, and that's a critical match. I think we have 2 critical matches. We have Kiski area and Canton Mac going at it. Even though that's out of section play, it's still for seeding purposes and for ranking purposes, it's nice to see those 2 big guns going at it early.
Well, you look at the Hempfield-Franklin regional match, if it is potentially 1-2 and 1B from those 2 teams, the loser is going to face Kiski area in that first semi in the Section 1 championships, which you want to stay away from. So in addition to winning your subsection, you're staying away from Kiski, gets you into potentially a top 2 finish, because 1A is obviously really weak outside of Kiski area. So you get away from Kiski area to be able to be in the top 2 in Section 1. And in years past, when you're in a top 2, top 3 out of Section 1, you're getting seated high by the WPIAL steering committee.
Yeah, absolutely, and for good reason.
Right. Subsection 2A, Bell Vernon over McKeesport 64-6. Connellsville over West Mifflin 71-6. Thomas Jefferson over Albert Gallatin 52-19. 2B is where we talked about there being some big matchups, and it did not disappoint. Ringgold beats Baldwin 45-18. Mount Lebanon over Bethel Park 40-39. Mount Lebanon receives 2 forfeits in this match. Bethel Park had more falls at 6-4, so it evened out the points. Bethel Park had 1 decision, but it was Luke Stout's major decision over Luke Montgomery that won it for Mount Lebanon. He defeats Luke 15-4 to give Mount Lebanon that 1-point advantage. The other match, Peters Township and Upper St. Clair. Peters Township wins that one 42-34. Upper St. Clair had more forfeits at 2-1. Peters Township had more falls at 4-3. It was the tech fall from Will Kale and a decision win by Luke Mary that won it for Peters Township. But here's a notable result, and it was the very first match. Jeff Market of Peters Township, he wins by fall over Harvey Roch of Upper St. Clair. Market is a seeded wrestler at 182, Roch at 195. First match of the night to come out with that fall, and a first period fall at that, sets the stage for Peters Township.
Yeah, and I would have to point to 132 as being my match that I circled as the highlight win, and that's freshman Donovan McMillan from Peter Township beating Ryan Dawson by major decision 10-0. That's a freshman going out in his first real big dual meet and coming away with a major decision 10-0. That gives them 4 really solid points out of a freshman. And as you said, Luke Mary, I would expect him to come away with a major. Instead, he comes away with a 2-0 decision. But still, I mean, a win's a win. So.
Yep. And Peters Township's now set up with the big win over Upper St. Clair. Now, this week coming up, Upper St. Clair is going to take on Mount Lebanon. So Mount Lebanon with their win over Bethel Park, how real are they? We'll find out this week with their matchup against Upper St. Clair. Subsection 3A, Mars beats Knock 47-24. Seneca Valley over Highlands 84-0. And Butler defeats Pine Richland 48-33. We talked about Pine Richland. Can they end up making some noise? They have a couple of good freshmen, obviously, we talked about. But each team with 2 forfeits. Butler just with more falls, and this one's 6-3.
Yeah, I'm not real surprised by any of those scores.
Subsection 3B, Hampton over Shaler 42-30. Fox Chapel over North Hills 56-21. North Allegheny over Indiana 53-15. Subsection 4A, Canton McMillan over Montour 71-9. Waynesburg over Chartiers Valley 77-4. And Trinity over Pittsburgh Central Catholic 66-15. Subsection 4B, Blackhawk over Hopewell 42-29. Moon over Newcastle 52-24. Nothing noteworthy in those 3 subsections, but one match I want to highlight for this week, Waynesburg against Trinity. We know how impressive Waynesburg has been. They had the win over Seneca Valley. Now they had the big performance at Beast of the East. So Waynesburg talking about in the mix with Canton McMillan, but first they need to take care of business against Trinity, who's wrestling well.
Yeah, and I would say Waynesburg is definitely in the driver's seat from there, and they've already proven that with some of their performances, and they're only getting better as the year goes on. So unfortunately for my father, who's a Trinity Hiller graduate, I don't know if the Trinity's going to be able to hang with Waynesburg. I really do think Waynesburg and Canamac are going to be the teams to beat.
Slide down to Double A in subsection 1A, Avella over Washington 27-9. Fort Cherry over Chartiers Houston 42-18. Subsection 1B, Freedom over Elwood City 57-15. Southside over Central Valley 52-12. And Beaver over Southside 59-24. Subsection 2A, Bentworth over West Green 54-10. Best Center over Mapletown 63-18. McGuffey over Jefferson Morgan 52-16. Subsection 2B, Elizabeth Forward over Mount Pleasant 42-34. Southmoreland over Fraser 60-9. Derry over York 61-15. 3A, Quaker Valley over Keystone Oaks 48-30. Carlinton over South Allegheny 40-18. South Fayette over Avonworth 75-6. And 3B, Burrell over Riverview 69-12. Not many scores that are, surprise here in Double A. Elizabeth Ford and Mount Pleasant was expected to be tight. Elizabeth Ford ends up pulling that one away. But you got Freedom and Beaver coming up this week. Beaver had the high win over Southside. Can they make some noise? But the other match I kind of have circled here, Derry and Southmoreland. Southmoreland with a big win over Fraser. Can they climb back into this and give Derry all they can handle? Derry coming off a strong performance last postseason. We talked about how much they have coming back, only losing one wrestler. Can they make some noise? I think that's probably the one highlight match in AA this week.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the only ones. It's a good benchmark for Southmoreland to see exactly where they stand in the WPIAL because, as you said, Derry, I like their firepower.
The only non-section match that we had for you, Blackhawk over York 42-36. But I wanted to mention some of the non-section matches we have coming up this week. Jeff alluded to one of them, Kiski and Canton McMillan. But first, tomorrow on Tuesday, we have Burrell at Hempfield. That should be a good one. Burrell is also going to be wrestling Waynesburg. They'll be wrestling on Friday. They got that started last year, those two dueling up. Kiski against Canton McMillan on Friday. Also, Latrobe and Derry is also on Friday. Those two like to wrestle one another. So 4 matches, non-section, AAA, AA kind of matches that should be interesting.
Yeah, those are the matches that excite me. I mean, those are the ones that I really like to see. As you said, Burrell, Waynesburg, Canton Mac, Kiski, Latrobe, Derry. I mean, those are some backyard brawlers, if you will. I mean, not necessarily they're Waynesburg and Burrell necessarily, but really just historically tough programs. And this year's no different. They're all really solid teams, and it's going to be a fun couple days here watching those teams go at it.
Yeah, especially with no tournaments coming up this weekend, we really only have the duels to look forward to this week. So it'll be interesting to see, where Burrell is, especially wrestling Hempfield and Waynesburg, and then that Kiski Canton Mac match. We talked about it last week a little bit, or over the last 2 weeks, and It's always, the last 2 years, it's been a great match, and I expect no different here this year.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm going to be there, and I'll be giving live updates. I may even put it out on live. I don't know. I'm going to try to figure it out. But no, those two teams, they bring so many different aspects of the match. I can't wait for that.
Speaking of the teams and how they're doing, let's get to the head coach of Seneca Valley, Kevin Wildrick, who's kind enough to join us on the show. We're happy to be joined by Kevin Wildrick of Seneca Valley on the show. And Kevin, you guys had a great weekend this past weekend at King of the Mountain. We'll go into individual performances, but overall, were you pretty happy with the team's performance?
Absolutely, especially coming off of last year's King of the Mountain performance. We actually placed 25th out of the 30 teams there last year, and did better at Powerade, shockingly, than we did at King of the Mountain last year. We just had a rough bout of county matches, and maybe a few guys just not ready to go. And this year, everybody kind of came in revved up, looking to redeem themselves from last year, especially, and put together some good performances.
Yeah, obviously the best performance comes from Lewis Newell. He just dominated the competition. Talk a little bit about Lewis. Has he just been hitting on all cylinders to start the year off?
Yeah, absolutely. He always comes in pretty good shape, being a soccer player on top of being a wrestler. So conditioning is never really an issue for him. So, his motor's running, and he seems to like the initial beginning of the season when he's up a weight class, especially. He just kind of looks real strong, and some of the competition he hit this weekend really played into his style, I guess, as far as the way they tried to bring their offense to him really helped his offense.
You mentioned Powerade, and we'll be getting into that here in a little bit, but Lewis is going to have one heck of a bracket at 126. Is he already looking forward to that competition?
He is looking forward to the competition, but he is also dropping to 122 for Powerade. Okay. So, I know Powerade's a tough tournament, but he is going to be making a transition down, leading towards that.
And Coach, I was able to be at King of Mountain and see firsthand some of that experience and that wrestling that you guys were able to put forth. Talk about the freshmen on the team, because I was pretty high on a lot of the Seneca Valley freshmen coming in this season. I've been called that I'm on the Seneca Valley bandwagon, because I think we talk about you on every show. So, but talk a little bit about those freshmen that you have and what kind of impact they're making already.
All three freshmen had a great tournament, with all three of them placing. Alejandro at 106 did a nice job. Had some tough matches to pull a fourth place as a freshman at that tournament is a good showing for sure. I think he was just kind of getting his feet wet in his beginning of his high school, wrestling career. It's a little bit different than the youth and junior high ranks. And Dylan Chappell, with the tough weekend, having to basically wrestle up a weight class and still place in the top 8 at a tough tournament like that. He would basically have the dual 106 pounders going. So, whoever is losing the wrestle off that week, kind of takes the weight on and does the best they can. And they, obviously still did really well. And Antonio Emilio, kind of up a weight class too at 138, had a great tournament. He had some really nice matches, put together some really good, really good matches with some really good competitions. All 3 did well. And, it's not like it maybe was back in the day. I'm sure everybody has this when you have some highly, looked after freshmen that come up. They're not in season wrestlers. So bigger tournaments and bigger competition aren't necessarily aren't that big a deal to them because they've been out doing it, all year round.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. I mean, I said this on the program before. If you look at Alondros, if you look at his results from as a youth wrestler, they're about a page and a half long. He's been in every major tournament there is out there. So, and that showed with me, at least this weekend, seeing him compete, it looked like he was pretty comfortable. But you got some upperclassmen as well that are sort of anchoring that team, especially when you look up at 45, 52, and 170. What's it like, after you get out of the lightweights area where it's kind of like murder's row there? What's the team like a little bit higher up?
A little bit higher up. I mean, we're extremely solid, and I think everybody's making a little bit of a weight class adjustment up there too right now as we lead towards the 2 pounds. But, going up with Jason Geyer, right above Lewis Newell, maybe if he didn't have a state runner-up right there with you, maybe his weight class would be slightly different too. But, he had a great tournament, just shy, and that's the one thing I think helped us place this weekend. Is some guys that didn't actually place still did a great job at winning matches and getting to the blood round and getting just short of placing if they didn't place, which was a big difference from last year. Drew Velasnik is another one of those that had a decent tournament. Just shy of getting to that placing round. At 152, Nick Montalbano had a great tournament. A last-second takedown away from placing 7th compared to 8th, and was right in the mix there. It could have easily a couple points here and there placed higher in the tournament for sure. And as you get up to Ty Gross, another one that had a double overtime, a final ultimate ride out match.
That was a marathon
in the quarters.
Match.
Oh my gosh, it was forever. And he ended up having to have that match over again for the 5th place match and fell just short there too. But, wrestled a great tournament. He's always been a solid anchor as a leader, and a captain on the team, and one of our senior veterans. So, we stay pretty solid as you move up through, maybe not we get higher up there, maybe not the same experience as some of that, lightweights that they had, but still very, very competitive.
And you look at it, you've been tested already this year. We talked about the individual performance, but from the dual meet standpoint, you had a really nice dual, a 1-point match with Waynesburg, 32-31 earlier this year. Talk about the dual aspect of Seneca Valley and really what's the aspirations for you and this team? Because, I mean, when I look around at the WPIAL, I'm thinking Kiski area is sort of at the top, and then it's up for grabs, and there's other spots. Is this something that you're looking forward to?
Absolutely. I think we have a team that can definitely put together some good dual meets. We get our lineup kind of put the way together we need it, and everybody working together at the right weights. I think we could be a pretty dangerous team dual meet wise, and obviously anything could happen, but, picking up bonus points and not giving up bonus points would be a pretty big key of our success to try to move forward and take that next step team wise. We've, the last couple of years, we've always been, good and better than average, towards the top of our section, but, top 8 WPIAL a couple of years ago, but just not taking that next that next step to get ourselves into that higher level team wise. And I think we have a team ready to take that next step.
Let's talk about that section a little bit. It's always been North Allegheny these last few years who have dominated the section. With them losing some guys to graduation, going into it, your school is one of those schools that's probably the favorite in Section 3. Do you guys feel that way as well? Do you feel any pressure being that favorite?
We try to stress just wrestling one match at a time. And, I joke with Joe Montalbano, my assistant, that, we can't let these guys find out that they're pretty good. You try to keep them grounded and make them know we haven't done anything yet. We might have a good team on paper and, some strong kids on paper, but until we go out every match and prove it, against anybody in the section, then, once we're done at the end of the season, we look back, then we can say how good we were. But as of right now, we, need to just go out and wrestle our best match each time we step out there.
Coach, we won't be talking about the Seneca Valley program anymore on the show. So that way they don't
lies.
So we don't trick them into thinking how good they are. So I like that philosophy.
I try, and I love that you guys are, giving us a little love this year. And I had a couple of first podcasts, even some other coaches throwing some kind words out for us. And I like it and I don't like it because, maybe the word will start getting out. But, I like to just kind of go out and take care of our business and let what we do on the mat, let everybody figure out where we are.
When you look at the rest of the season, obviously you mentioned one match at a time, but do you feel like Powerade and then going from there will kind of show where you guys are as far as the team, because you'll be seeing a lot of those WPIAL schools?
Yeah, I think so. It's tough tournament-wise to judge where you're going to be dual meet-wise. You might get a few head-to-heads, and it's tough to do the A plus B equals C with, matchups for certain kids and things like that. But definitely an indication, kind of see where you're at. And, we'll have a few more section matches under our belt just after Powerade. So we'll kind of see where we're at with at least our subsection to know how we're sitting there.
Well, we wish you the best of luck and appreciate your time joining us here. And, again, best of luck as you go through the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you, Coach.
Thanks again to Kevin for joining us on the show. We alluded to the King of the Mountain results. Let's get to that now. The WPIAL was well represented. Seneca Valley, also Franklin Regional, Penn Trafford, Burrell, and Bethel Park all there. And let's start at 106 pounds, where the WPIAL had two place finishers, and they wrestled each other for third and fourth place. Your third place finisher was Carter Dybert of Franklin Regional. He defeated from Seneca Valley, Alejandro Hero Rondon. Rondon? Did I say that right?
Rondon, yeah.
He beat him 3-2. Was that you were there, Jeff. Was that a great match?
Yeah, it was a really good match. And, both those wrestlers wrestled the eventual runner-up, Andrew Brest from General McLean, who looked significantly bigger than those two. So I think Alejandro and Carter are both undersized a little bit for the 106, but I really do think that they both showed really, really good potential for what they can do on the state level in the next couple of weeks. Both will be competing in some high-quality tournaments. So Carter Dybert was able to hold on for a 3-2 win, but really I was really happy to see both those two going at it because a lot of mutual respect between those two. They've wrestled before, so good showing by the WPIAL.
113 pounds, a good tournament for Trent Velachik of Burrell. He ends up placing in fourth, and mentioned Dylan Chappell a little bit earlier as well. He's right there at 106, but going up to 113, but still able to get on the medal stand in eighth place.
Yeah, I was extremely impressed with the way Dylan wrestled because, as you saw and heard, he's given up some weight. Unfortunately, at 113, with having him and Alejandro there at the same weight, but he still was able to get onto the podium and really, I thought, impressed beating Kyler Einsbach from Northern Lebanon, who was the fifth seed and highly ranked. He pinned him in 352, so good showing again at 113.
120 pounds, the freshman from Burrell, Ian Oswalt, able to pick up fifth place. He was able to make it to the quarterfinals, and then he ended up avenging that loss for fifth and sixth.
Yeah, Oswalt had a good showing. I like the way he sort of competes. He's a little bit wild. He just sort of goes out there and flows. He has some long hair, so he just looks at like it all hangs out. It just sort of goes with it. But he wrestles tough, and I think Coach Shields alluded to that when we talked to him. But he had solid wins in the wrestlebacks over some notable names. And Isaac Crow, he dropped a match to him 3-1, but still bounced back to finish 5th. And I was impressed with the way he wrestled. Also, a good tournament for Brett Ginther of Penn Trafford. I know he doesn't get on the award stand, but he was 1 win away, able to pick up 3 wins in the consolations. And you're trying to take something away from a tournament for some of these guys who may not get on the award stand. It's those kind of guys who maybe lose their first match and able to battle back in the consolations and gain some confidence to pick up a few wins. Yeah, I agree.
126 pounds, Lewis Newell, dominant. Ends up tech falling in the finals, Kenny Kisser, to win the championship at 126. Brian Gall of Burrell, ends up finishing in 4th place, and Zach McCann of Franklin Regional finishes in 8th place. But Newell just, we heard him say he's going to drop down to 120, which I don't think is too surprising, especially considering the field he's going to have at 126 at Powerade. But overall, Newell just dominant.
Yeah, I love watching him wrestle. He just goes, and you can tell he's a soccer player because his engine is just never stopped. He always is going. He's in your face. Like I said, he hand fights so well. I love the way he sets up his offense. And he really took it to Kenny Kaiser in the finals. And Kenny was a really tough wrestler. He's another goer. He just goes. And really Lewis was able to just control the match to the point where he was just doing what he wanted with him, especially from the top position. So solid win for Lewis Newell because you looked at that bracket and it was pretty loaded. You got Kenny Kaiser, Shane Hanson Ashworth, another freshman sophomore Connor Quinn from O&J Roberts. So good performance by Lewis Newell.
Even Brian Gall, too, to finish in 4th place in that bracket, including a win over Zach McCann in the prelims. He beats him 2-1.
Yeah, and he beat Jeremy Hanford from Warrior Run in the Conci semis, and then drops a tough match to Hanson Ashworth. But, yeah, I was impressed with them. And as you said, McCain came back to finish in 8th place.
132 pounds, Colton Camacho of Franklin Regional. He is your champion. He beats Ben Radner of Council Rock South 8-5 in the finals. And outside of that close match, he was really dominant to get to that point.
Yeah, and even in that finals match, it wasn't necessarily that he was dominating the match, but he was controlling the match pretty well up until like the last 15 seconds, and he relaxed, and he knows it. He just sort of relaxed a little bit and got thrown. And was gave up some points, some back points, and a takedown. So he knows what he did, and he was controlling that match. And his offense, his duck unders, his just the way he gets to the guy's legs, he's just really improved from last year, big time. I hate to say it, but you can see how Spencer Lee training with him every day is really rubbed off on him because he uses his quickness to his advantage and he uses the other guy's leverage to his advantage, something that's pinnacle to what Spencer Lee does.
Is it odd to see that once Spencer leaves, you see that difference in Colton?
Yeah, because, not saying I didn't see it last year because, obviously he
had a great year.
Yeah, he had a good year, but I didn't see it to this level, to this extent. He never would have dominated the King of the Mountain last year like he did this year. So something's clicking in his head. I think his endurance and his conditioning is on a different level. He runs back to the center in the circle every single time. It doesn't matter what period it is. He's always running back and he's in your face. He looks like Spencer Lee type, and it's crazy to see that after Spencer leaves. But definitely impressed with the way Colton's wrestling thus far.
138 pounds, Nick Coy of Penn Trafford finishes in 3rd place, and Antonio Emilio of Seneca Valley, he finishes in 5th place.
Yeah, Emilio's a really big performance for me. I was really impressed with the way he wrestled. He was able to get a few big wins. He only lost to Joe Clock 7-4, a guy who's very high ranked, and he comes in and beats some guys. He was the 12th seed, so obviously he beat a few guys that he wasn't supposed to. But I was really anxious to see how he competed, being that he is a freshman.
Job Chisco of Penn Trafford bounces back with a championship at 145 pounds, and he does it by defeating, after placing, I think, 3rd of the Eastern areas the week before, he ends up pinning Colin Myers of Boiling Springs in the first period.
Yeah, and he looked on fire. I mean, that finals match, he just came out and, I mean, it looked like he was wrestling a JV wrestler, and he was wrestling a state runner-up. You know, and that's nothing against Colin Myers, but the way that Chisco wrestled, I mean, he just went after it. And this has really been his MO for, several years now. But he looks, I mean, he's at 145. It's hard to believe that because I remember watching him at 106 at the King of Mountain several years ago. But at 145, he's strong, and he does what he does, and he's tough on top.
152 pounds, a pair of place winners. Hunter Kernan of Bethel Park, he finishes in 6th place. And also Nick Montalbano of Seneca Valley, he finishes in 8th place.
Yeah, and I was impressed with the way Kernan wrestled for Bethel Park. I thought he had some good wins. He beat a tough freshman, Trey Kibe. He pinned him, actually, in the wrestlebacks. And then, as you said, Nick Montalbano, he came back and finished 8th, and he lost to Trey Kibe 8-7, but still a good performance for him. And that was 152 was a tough weight class. I mean, there was a lot of studs in that, including, state champion Justin McCoy.
And actually, Kernan and Montalbano actually wrestled, and in that prelim round, Kernan ends up winning that match 7-3. Yeah,
definitely an impressive performance for Hunter, and he definitely propelled himself higher up in the rankings.
160 pounds, Sean Gates of Burrell. He is your only place winner. He finishes in 6th place, and he was able to get to the semifinals of this tournament.
Yeah, and Coach Shields was very excited with the way Gates wrestled in the quarterfinals to get to the semis. He beat Blaine Bressler from Northern Lebanon in 4-2, and that was a sort of a grueling match for him. And he definitely wrestled well against him. He did then lose to him in the 5th place match 10-4, but still a solid performance.
170 pounds, Jason Montgomery in Bethel Park. He was the 2 seed going in, and he ends up finishing in 2nd place. He drops a 10-4 decision to Jared McGill in the finals. Also getting on the award stand was Tyler Gross of Seneca Valley. He finishes in 6th place.
Yeah, and with Montgomery, I mean, he's now got a sort of a target on his back. He's a state medalist from Bethel Park and ranked number 2 in the state. And he had some trouble. He had a tough win against Tanner Weaver from Central Mountain, just narrowly escaped a 3-1 victory. And then Jared McGill just sort of dominated that match with him. So I think in order for Jason to get to that next level and really separate himself from the rest of the field in AAA, he's going to have to do a better job against some of these tougher competition.
182 pounds, only 1 place winner from the WPIAL, John Bacher. He ends up finishing in 5th place. But I want to quickly mention this finals result. 2 state champions, Trent Hidley and Cody Mulligan. Hidley ends up winning 3-2 for the championship. How good was that final?
Yeah, it was a great match. And in fact, you can go on to PA Power Wrestling's YouTube page. You can watch that match. I recorded it on there. And it was worth the price of admission. Trent Hidley and Cody Mulligan just grueling match. I mean, both of them were a little bit beat up afterwards, and Hidley was able to get not a quick takedown, but he was able to get a takedown to pretty much secure that win in the first period. So good match.
195 pounds. The WPIAL had 1 wrestler get on the medal stand, and that was John Sawick of Seneca Valley.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, I really was looking for balance in terms of Seneca Valley because outside of from 106 to 170, they're solid, but there's a lot of question marks after that. So good performance for John to come out and get on the podium.
And no wrestlers on the WPIAL end up getting on the award stand at 220 or 285 pounds. Let's jump over to another tournament that features some WPIAL schools, and that was Beast of the East. And it was a good tournament for Waynesburg. You look at, they had 4 total medalists. Caleb Morris at 132 pounds. He finishes in 8th place. Jackson Henson, we talked about the transfer from West Virginia, at 138. He finishes in 4th place. Trey Howard at 152 finishes in 7th place, and Kyle Hammett at 170, he finishes in 4th place. Strong performance for Waynesburg.
That was a very, very strong performance for Waynesburg, and guys like Kyle Hammett coming away with a 4th place finish in this tournament is very impressive. I was definitely impressed with the way Jackson Henson wrestled. I mean, I've seen him wrestle throughout his career, but him being on the Waynesburg lineup, it really helps them out tremendously in those middleweights. Even though they have a solid freshman, Luca Augustine, they have a lot of depth. That's what's scary. That's what makes Waynesburg scary. Is they can do so many different things with their lineup in a dual format. But I was looking at guys like Wyatt Henson. Wyatt Henson was in the blood round. Jackson's younger brother. He was one match away from getting onto the podium. Also, guys like Caleb Morris, like you said, he came away with an 8th place finish, but in a really tough weight, and he came away with some pretty impressive wins, including one over fellow Pennsylvania wrestler Michael Madeira from Blair Academy. So overall, Waynesburg just continues to get better and better. As you said, that 1-point win over Seneca Valley, that was even without Jackson Henson.
A couple other notable results at 285 pounds. Derek Devine, North Allegheny, he finishes in 8th place, the only wrestler for North Allegheny to get on the medal stand. And Gerald Brown, a West Mifflin, he finishes in 3rd place. Also, Gerald finishes with the most falls of the tournament with 6.
Yeah, that's because he had to wrestle back a long way, and he dropped a little bit of an early round match, and he came back, and he's an unknown. I mean, he's a guy that people don't know a lot about because of him being a first time at the state tournament last year and ends up finishing 4th in that crazy WPIAL 1, 2, 3, 4 match. But with Isaac Reid being out for, realistically, maybe the entire year, Gerald Brown is the next highest returning place winner. So can he come out and really cement his name for West Mifflin?
Speaking of Isaac Reid, we haven't really talked into him on the show a little bit here. What's going on with him? Yeah, so Isaac, he had a blood clot in his lung.
So he's going to be out for the foreseeable future with that. Unfortunately, it came about when he was practicing, and his dad put a nice little message on Facebook about how that transpired, and unfortunately, they got to take it that's nothing you can play around with. Is a blood clot in your lung. That's not good.
Right. Yeah, and obviously there's no way to set a timetable either, so it's hard to say whether he could be back by team championships, by individuals, or even not at all. It's something that's very questionable. I mean, have they said anything in regards to like a timeline at all?
No, I don't think there was any timeline put in place, and I think something like that, you definitely are going to be conservative about getting him back on the mat. But I'm sure Isaac's definitely probably wanted to get back as soon as possible, but they have to do what's right. So I don't know. I don't have much more information other than the fact that he is going to be out for quite a bit.
Let's just hypothetically say that he never does come back, at least for the team portion side of things. Does this open it up for Waynesburg to potentially jump in and upset Kiski, or even can McMillan jump in and pull upsets? Because that's a big guy out of your lineup that you probably would get 6 points from in those matchups.
It does and it doesn't. When I look at Kiski and I look at how solid they are throughout, they're not going to give up a whole lot of bonus points. The matches that they are going to lose, they're not going to give up a lot of bonus points, and they're going to most likely get some bonus points in some matches. So I think it obviously makes the gap smaller between Kiski and the rest of the field, but I don't necessarily, I'm not going to say, they're going to lose now because they don't have Isaac Reid. I mean, they're going to make up those points, and Troy Kuhn at 220 is sort of a ace in the hole for them because he's up at 220 and he can pin basically anybody he wants. But the only problem is he then could get pinned as well. He's sort of a risk taker in that sense. But I wouldn't say it necessarily opens the door. The door's always been open for Waynesburg. Canton Mac, I need to see more out of them first to really put them in that conversation.
Speaking of Kiski area, they were just at the North Hills Wrestling Duels, and they end up taking the title. They end up defeating Cumberland Valley in the championship 46-21. They end up winning their 11th title at the North Hills Duels, their 3rd in a row, and thanks to Rick Smith for sending us these results. North Hills end up finishing in 3rd place. They beat Penn Hills 45-34, and Pittsburgh Central Catholic defeats Gateway for 5th by a tiebreaker 30-30. Outstanding wrestler of the tournament was Cam Connor at 145, and the most falls went to Alex Delp at 160. He had 5 falls in 9 minutes and 33 seconds, but dominating performance for Kiski area to beat Cumberland Valley 46-21.
Yeah, and WPIAL fans may look into that a little bit more than they should. Cumberland Valley has a sort of a down year this year. Not saying that they're not good, because Cumberland Valley is always good. It doesn't matter. Their down year is really good to some programs. So, but no, Kiski, I think, just showed how really dominant they are, and that is without Isaac Reid. And Cam Connor, my gosh, the way he's been wrestling. I mean, we just talked about Job Chisco, who pinned in the King of Mountain Finals and looked dominant. Cam Connor beat him. And Cam Connor's, I mean, really a juggernaut right now. I mean, he just continues to go. And, he beat Justin Perkins from Penn Hills, who bumped up to wrestle him. And, I think he's going to be sort of that Joey Bloomer type guy for Kiski area, just dependable. He's always going to be in matches. He's going to get wins, and he's really separating himself from the rest of the field.
Also, a pair of tournaments that pair of WPIAL schools were at, and Mount Pleasant was at the Penn Cambria Holiday Tournament and featured a lot of the Mount Pleasant wrestlers, and 3 of them were on the ward stand, Jeff.
Yeah, Damian George comes out with a 3rd place finish at 106, and that was sort of a loaded weight class. And Penn Cambria and our partner Eric Knopsnyder was there, and this was a deep tournament. So for Mount Pleasant to come away with some medalists is definitely a good showing. Doug Bittner from Mount Pleasant at 120 takes 6th. So another good performance for Mount Pleasant.
And also Alex Miskovich at 138 pounds. He finishes in 7th place for Mount Pleasant. The other tournament is the North Canton tournament, where Canton McMillan was at, and they finished very well.
Yeah, and Canton McMillan had several solid performances, even despite being without Logan Macri. They were still able to come away with some good performances, and they finished actually in 4th place at this tournament. But I mean, this is featuring some pretty impressive teams from Ohio. Jimmy Baxter, as a sophomore, he went 7-1, and he placed 3rd at 106. Michael Binney at 113 places 4th. And then, as I said, no Logan Macri at 126, but at 120, Ken Heyman, he wins it. He's actually the only champion from Canton Mac.
Which is pretty. Macri, you mentioned Garrett Ninehouse also, but Heyman ends up coming with the title.
Yeah, he wins that at 120. You look at Tim Risco from Canton Mac at 138. He comes away with a 3rd place finish. And moving up, as you mentioned, Garrett Ninehouse, he finishes 2nd at 160. He loses to Jaden Maddox from Ohio Central Crossing, and Jaden Maddox is really tough. So I wasn't surprised when I saw. I was excited to see how this match would play out, because Jaden Maddox is highly ranked. He's ranked in the nation. So Garrett Ninehouse does fall short, but still a 2nd place finish.
8-4 was the final there for Maddox in that one. So a couple of notes. Obviously, we mentioned the matches coming up. There are no tournaments this weekend, so nothing to preview there. But the matches to look forward to, we mentioned in section, Franklin Regional Hempfield, Upper St. Clair Mount Lebanon, Waynesburg Trinity, and Derry Southmoreland. But then the non-section matches, Burrell at Hempfield. Also have Burrell and Waynesburg, Kiski and Canton McMillan, and Latrobe and Derry. And make sure you stay with PA Power Wrestling. We'll be there for Kiski and Canton Mac, so be able to let you know where the score is with that one. It's a good preview for the potential WPIAL team championships here coming down the road.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and those teams always battle, and they always come out, and it doesn't matter who's toeing the line for either team. They're going to go at it. I like the sort of rivalry that they started, because they're out of section. They are traveling a good distance. And that place will be rocking for sure. And we'll be right back there for Powerade. It's hard to believe Powerade's already
a little over a week away,
yeah. And I can't wait to preview that. I mean, it is my favorite tournament of the year, hands down. I mean, I love that tournament.
Even better than a state tournament?
It's different. I mean, the state tournament's so overwhelming for me. I feel like it's just because it's
the pinnacle, really, for PA Power Wrestling.
And it's such long days between AA and AAA. I mean, talk about not seeing the sunlight basically all day. I mean,
Yep.
you've been up there in the crow's nest, so to speak, calling the matches. So, yeah, I mean, the Powerade tournament is just, it's harder to win Powerade than it is the state tournament sometimes. Depending on the weight. Yeah, I mean, you look at how many state champions do not. I mean, Justin McCoy, for example, from Chestnut Ridge,
I don't think he medaled
last year. Yeah, at Powerade, and he was a state champion. The list goes on and on of guys. Also very curious to see Gavin Teasdale. He'll be down at 126. Guys like Bo Bartlett from Wyoming Seminary. Guy we haven't mentioned really much on the show, Sammy Hilgis. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yes.
He was an undefeated state champion last year.
Yeah,
and he doesn't get a lot of love.
No, he doesn't. You know, he didn't wrestle in the Chartiers Houston tournament. From my understanding, he was dealing with an issue of some cauliflower ear.
Yeah, he had to get surgery on his
so
ear.
He should be back for Powerade, but boy, Teasdale, Bartlett, and Hilligus. Bartlett wrestled Hilligus at the Super 32.
Yep, Bartlett won.
Won by a 1 point score there. And last year, Macri upset Bo Bartlett, I do believe. So Bartlett didn't get a chance to wrestle Teasdale. So what happens, I mean, at that weight class, and that's why I mentioned with Newell a little earlier in the show, that weight class in particular could go 8 deep. Yeah. It's going to be, and that's without Newell.
And that's now it's without Newell, as we know he's going down to 120, which I'm not surprised about. Sammy Hilgis is most probably going to stay at 126, and Bo Bartlett is definitely a 26-pounder. Listen, if... You know, I haven't seen Gavin wrestle this year other than that who's number one. But, I mean, Colin Camacho basically almost – I mean, he really pushed him to the limit.
Do you think that plays a part of why he's going down now?
No. I just think he's –
I know he's going down for the postseason. But.
No, I think he's naturally – I mean, he's going to be a 25-pounder for Penn State. I don't see why he's too small for 132. So I don't think that –
You think he'll be a 25-pounder for Penn State?
I think he'll start. I mean –
I don't know if he'd be 33 or not.
I mean, I don't know. The talk is that he'll be a 25-pounder. Me personally, I think he's more of a 33 because just the way his body type is. But I mean, 26, he's going to have a hard time repeating. You know, as an undefeated, 3-time Powerade champion and 3-time state champion, he'll have as I said, he'll have a harder time winning Powerade than Will States.
Yeah. This will be his toughest task, to keep his undefeated streak and stay undefeated. And you have Hilligus on the other side, who I'm sure would love to stay undefeated his whole high school career as well.
Right, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's in his sophomore year, undefeated, and he's only getting better and stronger as he develops and continues to do well for himself. So, yeah, Powerade I can't wait, and it's really just such a good tournament, such a deep tournament. Frank Volcano does a great job of getting the best teams in there. I mean, from all over the state. So it's one to look forward to.
So obviously next week is Christmas. Are you ready for Christmas? By the way,
no, not at all.
Come on, man, it's a week away.
Okay, so you have to understand to the listeners, I'm sitting here in a raggedy old PA Power T-shirt circa 2007. Greg is sitting here with a ho 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 tie on. Does it make noise? Does it make noise?
It does.
Oh my God, that's embarrassing. And you're married? You're married.
You know who gave me this tie?
Your wife.
My grandmother.
Oh,
so why don't you be nice?
I'm sorry. Oh my gosh.
It's going to go for a little while, by the way.
Okay, that's really annoying. And you wear that at work? Like, do you ever turn that on at work?
No, I don't. But, maybe once a day, just to make sure everybody knows this is a tie that plays music. But
yeah, right.
Other than that, I break out the Christmas ties, in December. Maybe, if I'm wearing, Monday to Thursday, we have a casual Friday. Maybe Monday to Thursday, dress up nice. Maybe 2 out of those 4, I'll wear a Christmas tie. You only get so many times to wear them, Jeff.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't think I own a Christmas tie, to tell you sure.
Do you own a tie, period?
Yeah, I do. I'm a man of integrity and honor. Of course I own a tie.
Okay.
I'm going to be wearing one this Thursday when I'm doing some stuff with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which was a terrible game, by the way.
Let's not get into that.
Let's not get into that. But Powerade, Powerade, Christmas definitely takes a backseat to wrestling.
Your poor fiance.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, she's awesome. She's actually going to be at Powerade helping me out outside with the stand and selling T-shirts. So we're gonna
make sure you come check out our stand for sure.
Absolutely.
PA Power Wrestling. We'll be talking about it next week. So I was mentioning with Christmas being next week that we won't be having the show Monday night. I'm thinking Wednesday. We'll probably have it out for me Wednesday night.
I think Wednesday night's a good time to let everything decompress and then start really hammering away at the Powerade and some other tournaments, because Powerade's not the only tournament that's going on.
The Southmoreland tournament's always if you're looking at another solid tournament to go to locally outside of Powerade, Southmoreland is just right there with it.
West Mifflin, there's a ton of different tournaments going on, but obviously our main focus will be Powerade, considering it's where I'll be and where you'll be, and it's It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so we'll focus on those tournaments, get you a nice solid preview. Also, we'll recap the scores we mentioned from week 2 and some of the non-section stuff as well. So Wednesday night is when you can prepare for another podcast for WarUp on the WPIAL. But in the meantime, have a great Christmas, Jeff.
Absolutely. You too, Greg. And always, don't forget to check out PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. We got updated rankings coming your way, a lot of shifting around in those rankings because not only are guys moving around in weights, but maybe some upsets here or there. So a lot of shifting around in these early parts of the season. So this is always a fun time for me to sort of put together the puzzle that is rankings. So check those out on PAPowerWrestling.com. Follow us on Twitter at PAPowerWrestle. Follow us on Instagram and friend us on Facebook. Do all the above. And maybe I'll send a tweet. Yeah, maybe Greg will actually get on the Twitter thing. Maybe. Yeah, well, we'll see. I do have the app, so I'm going to step in the right direction. Yeah, there you go. You and your Christmas tie. Maybe I'll find one for you and I'll get it for you for Christmas. Well, for all the listeners, please have a safe and happy holiday season. Merry Christmas to everybody, and look forward to talking to you soon. Sounds great. Thanks again to Kevin Wildrick of Seneca Valley. And just like Jeff mentioned, happy holidays to everyone listening in. And we'll have a new show for you next week here on WarUp on the WPIAL.